Earlier this month, Akira Toriyama passed away. You probably know him as the creator of Dragon Ball, maybe the character designer for the Dragon Quest video games. I think it's safe to say that his work has been an immeasurable inspiration for many people, myself included. And I wasn't even sure if I should make a video talking about Akira Toriyama. I'm absolutely a fan, but by no means am I the most knowledgeable about his work and his career. But as I was looking back, I sort of realized that Akira Toriyama's work has been present in my basically entire life, is almost as long as I can remember. His comics and cartoons and games have had such a profound effect on me. I felt like I needed to share his inspiration, and hopefully you can relate, or at the very least find some inspiration for yourself and make something new, get inspired, create your own stuff. So the very first bit of Akira Toriyama work that an American audience would have been exposed to is Dragon Warrior, and I am no exception to this. As a maybe 6 or 7 year old, I saw this game in my local video rental store and immediately picked it up, was very intrigued. The game was definitely too difficult or obtuse for me. I remember getting to a dark cave and being killed by a green dragon and not being able to get past that part of the game. I want to say, unfortunately, the American version, Dragon Warrior, it's called Dragon Quest elsewhere, Dragon Quest now. When Dragon Warrior was published here, they sort of sterilized the box art and the instruction manual and stuff, got rid of all of Akira Toriyama's artwork. Luckily, I still fell for the cover and was captivated enough by his monster designs in the actual game. But at this stage, I had no idea who Toriyama was. That wouldn't change until maybe 6th grade. I was 11, maybe 12-year-old only child living in North Carolina when the very first episode of Dragon Ball came on TV. I was at that age when, you sort of like start thinking like, oh, maybe I need to leave these action figures and these cartoons behind and start doing more grown-up stuff. But thinking back, that first episode of Dragon Ball really hit hard for me. You have Goku, this little kid living by himself in the wilderness, and then gets caught up in this adventure to find the Dragon Balls and gets pulled into this fighting tournament, and there was just the right level of action and fart jokes, and it just hit perfectly for me at that age. I was hooked, and I feel like I am forever a kid because of that. I mean, I became obsessed with Dragon Ball Z when Toonami finally came around and had to, watch the episodes until they caught up, and then it'd start over and you'd watch all the episodes again, one at a time, every day after school. Of course, like so many other fans, I drew Dragon Ball stuff nonstop. These are the only drawings I could dig up, but I know I've got tons more somewhere down in the basement. At that time, we just had the Dragon Ball anime. None of the comics or anything had started coming over yet, but I was so obsessed I found fan-translated versions on ToriyamaWorld.com. I wonder if that's still a website. And reading that stuff, I didn't really get how masterful Toriyama was as a cartoonist. I mean, obviously I loved his character designs, and obviously the serialized nature of the story really hooked me, but it wasn't until much later that I really grasped how awesome Toriyama is as a cartoonist. So after grad school, actually, I was so inspired by this stuff, I wanted to devote my life to making comics. So I went to undergrad and studied comics, and then went to grad school to study comics, thinking I would become a teacher and teach comics. I think in big part because of Toriyama, but as I sort of studied and got better at making comics, I graduated grad school and was really interested in the literary side of comics. I was trying to make serious autobiographical stories. But I found this copy of Kawa in an import bookshop. It's kind of crazy because I've still never actually read this comic, but I just kind of poured over this imported Japanese version of the manga, and I just totally fell in love with this crazy little vampire character who turns into a koala and like goes on this weird adventure with this like gangster guy and his little ghost friend. And even though I couldn't read the comic, I could totally follow what was going on. The action is so wonderful. There's comedy bits that I could laugh just looking at the pictures and following the story. And as I was trying to make this really serious work, at the same time I was falling in love, just poring over this wacky kids comic, and I realized that you can do whatever you want with comics. It's this magical thing. You can tell stories and create worlds and characters, and really your imagination is the limit. You can put all this fantastical stuff into your stories, and they can still be personal and meaningful, but they can also be funny and have cool world building and fantasy elements at the same time. And this single volume of manga that I couldn't read completely transformed how I thought about the stuff I was making. So the first comic I made after this realization is called Rematch. It's a story about me feeling insecure and regaining my confidence. I basically skate into outer space and challenge this very Akira Toriyama inspired alien to a ping pong match. And then we get into a big kung fu fight and, ends in a gag. I tried to include multiple gags per page. Just totally fun comics. I actually fell in love with drawing again. I wanted to have really cool character designs and action, and I even drew a moped like Toriyama always. He draws the coolest vehicles ever. I mean, the moped in this is nothing like the amazing vehicles Toriyama comes up with, but still very, very inspired. And then a few years later, like a decade later, I stumbled upon this book, and this hit at just the right time too. I was getting into tabletop role-playing games, and I had this feeling that, when I close my eyes and envision a fantasy world, it's not a fully painted, highly rendered. It doesn't look like the version of fantasy that's presented in the Dungeons and Dragons book, not taking anything away from that artwork. It's awesome artwork. It's just not what I envision in my head movies, But I got this book. I started flipping through, and I'm looking at all of these old Dragon Quest monster designs, and I'm thinking, this is how I envision my skeletons and dragons and evil wizards and slimes. And if you're interested in the work I'm doing now in these videos, you can probably tell how influenced I am by this stuff. And it just strikes me, thinking back on Akira Toriyama's work, it just really hits me how when I was a little kid, I got this Dragon Warrior game, and it said something to me. It captured my attention in some way. And here I am 30 plus years later, still captured and captivated by this work. I think it goes to show how masterful Toriyama was, how important his legacy is, because I know I'm not the only one. And I just think this stuff is so, so cool. Like, if you have a desire to create something, to make art, to write a story, try going back to the stuff that you connected to when you were a little kid. Think about why it was important to you. What about it really drew you in? And I think you'll find whatever it is that is important to you about this stuff is still with you, and I think could be important to you in the stuff that you make now. Whether it's a comic or a video game or your own tabletop role-playing game campaign, that's where you're really going to find the sort of deep, almost primal inspiration. The stuff that captured you as a kid, it has the power to do the same when you revisit it as an adult, or better, when you revisit it as a bigger kid. Okay, so I want to encourage you to go check out some Akira Toriyama stuff. Go play an old Dragon Quest game. Go read some Dragon Ball. If Dragon Ball is too intimidating, I think a really great manga to check out is Sandland. It's got the classic Toriyama, a combination of amazing character designs, awesome monsters, great world building and fun action sequences, awesome vehicles, really great single volume manga. I hope this video is inspiring, gets you to go pick up a pencil, do some writing. I know this is kind of a sad moment, but I feel like Toriyama's work is so full of heart and positivity and fun. That's the stuff that we hang on to and get inspired by and keep with us, and then go on to make new things that reflect that positivity and fun back into the world. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.